Good evening. Welcome to Editors Forum. The Electricity Company of Ghana is back in charge of Ghana's power distribution sector after the termination of the concessionaire agreement with PDS. It brings to an end the 6-month spell of PDS, which was rocked by a scandal in the last 3 months after government detected what it believed were material breaches.
The sales and retail of energy license has already been suspended, and PDS, up until 9:30 this morning, was still in possession of the distribution of energy distribution license. That one will today be terminated by the Energy Commission as the law demands.
The termination comes after the U.S. government had announced it is withholding some $190 million due Ghana under the Power Compact over the decision. Former President Mahama says the situation could have been avoided if good decisions devoid of state capture agenda being experienced under the leadership of President Akufo-Addo were pursued.
We are all deeply disappointed because of the self-serving decisions that we're taking. The deliberate acts perpetuated with the Flagstaff House in the ECG concessionaire agreement that has led us to where we are today.
The opposition NDC is against a restrictive tendering process for replacement and also fears government's poor handling of the deal would affect the MCC Compact 3 and subsequent compacts as well as the country's integrity.
A government that cannot be trusted to do things properly under international competitive bidding. Even in international competitive bidding, they found a way of messing the procurement up. And now you are allowing them that you go and select your own companies and come and do restrictive bidding 3 months and then take the thing away.
It's not a matter of calling the bluff. It's really a matter of the Ghanaian government having embarrassed itself. The Ghanaian government has put Ghana in an awkward position where we are now being seen in the Committee of Nations as a country that promotes corruption.
The minority in Parliament says it is taking steps to have the Finance Minister appear in the House to answer questions.
This time, we are thoroughly studying the PDS agreement that has sold in council. As we are reading, we will invoke the 49 to bring the matter to the floor.
And meanwhile says it has tasked ECG to probe PDS over its alleged use of operational funds to meet financial obligations it was required to meet before taking over.
It is expected that residual matters between ECG and PDS will be resolved with dispatch. ECG has remained in possession of assets, while PDS has been assisting it with some limited services in the period during which the concession was suspended prior to this termination.
Also this week, importers and traders in Ghana have been lamenting over the recent closure of Nigeria's border in what they describe as unfair treatment.
You should use your strength, economic strength, to pull the weak ones along. You do not use it to bully anybody. I'm disappointed.
Nigeria closed its borders to its neighbors in the sub-region to protect the country from rampant smuggling. Meanwhile, Deputy Trade Minister has assured the matter will be resolved in 2 weeks.
We're going to drive all the way by road to the border. We would identify these problems.
When are we doing this?
I think within a week or so we should be able to do it. In fact, we are looking at within by a couple of weeks we should be able to solve this problem.
Football administrator and former sports journalist Keto Kreko is now president-elect of the Ghana Football Association.
In celebrating this success story, colleagues, it is time for us to work.
We have all the angles on Editors Forum. We're live from our studios in Kokomlemle on digital address GA09925339, Go TV channel 144, on DSTV channel 421, on Facebook.com/JoyNews, on TV, on YouTube, and across the world at myjoyonline.com. On WhatsApp, the number is 0266047417, and on Twitter, my personal handle is @Aisha Ibrahim. My guest in the studio, Toma Emire, is editor, Gold Street Business Newspaper. And Malik Abbas Dabo is head of investigative desk at JoyNews and also deputy head of our political desk. Good to see you, gentlemen.
Good to see you, Aisha.
And as usual, I always start with Toma when it comes to these issues. You're one of the people who called for the termination of the contract because we suspected some material breaches in there. Satisfied?
Yes, I'm satisfied with the termination, but I'm totally unsatisfied with all the things that led up to where we are today. I regard this as a really horrible scandal. It was very, very deliberate. And as I said in the editorial in Go Street last week, while I totally disapprove of political parties that engage in point scoring for electoral purposes, this time around, the incumbent government has only itself to blame, because this thing was very, very, very badly handled. And you see, it wasn't just what happened, but you see, we put ourselves in this position. When we decided that it was going to be 51% for Ghanaians and 49% for foreigners, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to have seen what was going to happen. You know, the fact was that you were not going to get Ghanaians who had the money to put in their share of the 500 million that they needed to invest. All right? And which genuine businessman, foreign businessman, is going to be willing to put in the whole 500 million in exchange for 49% of the equity, so to say, in the concession?
Yeah.
So it was obvious that we were going to be left with people who were just ready to cut corners along with their Ghanaian accomplices. And that is exactly what happened. I mean, when we now changed the thing, we could see some people started pulling out. It was obvious what was going to happen, you know. And I mean, well, I'm not at all surprised about how this thing has panned out. I'm not really surprised at all, you know. But I am still disappointed that we've allowed. I mean,
there's been a banter between government and MCC. We've seen statements issued by the MCC. It was responded by the finance minister and all of that. And we are learning that apart from the 190 million we're losing, we're also going to be losing more than that, because we're going to lose investments worth about $600 and $600 million and what have you. We'll go into that, but Malik, you've been studying the statements from the MCCA and that of government, and bring us up to speed as to where we are now.
Well, so Thomas started off where we are. Where we are is the government has decided to do the termination, and the government's decision was founded on what government itself said, and you quoted that material breaches in the agreement or in the conduct of PDS, on the basis of which government founds its decision to terminate. Now, how did we get here? Somewhere in 2014, Ghana government qualified for the Millennium Challenge Account Compact 2. After we successfully went through the first compact. Remember the first compact, which brought more than 500 million, the one that we had Sheikh Isikwe say the money is big. Remember that? It was out of that compact that we got the N1. And apart from the N1, we had so many other projects that came under Compact 1. Now, having successfully completed Compact 1, we qualified for Compact 2 in 2014. Now, the Americans decided that for the Compact 2, they think that one of the major problems that beset Ghana's progress in development is energy. Energy, because we have all of these difficulties in managing our energy efficiencies. So the government then decided that they will give us this money, but under a condition that this money would go into enhancing our energy delivery, and particularly the distribution aspects of it. The reason simply is this: if you check all our data, you would find that ECG, as was constituted, we were told at the time, was suffering from about 26% of distribution losses. I.e., if VRA and all the other power generators generated power, 26% of it was lost. which means that 26% did not generate money.
Yeah.
Now, if Aisha, you produce this glass of water, you produce 100 of them, and you lose 26 of them, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now, the MCC's argument simply was, well, we will give you this money, but the compact 2 will be for dealing with your energy
problem.
So we signed this compact in 2014, and then we started taking the steps that will lead to private sector participation. And the reasoning simply is this. All over the world, the private sector have proven to be more capable and efficient in managing these kinds of things. So that was why under Compact 2, the agreement was bring in private sector participation in order that they can bring the efficiency which is traditionally attributed to private sector
and
players.
Which is actually needed to resolve energy issues.
Absolutely.
And $500 million in new investment, which government could not afford to give ECG.
Yeah.
That was also along with the what Asbalik was
So
saying
bringing a private company that can bring on board that kind of money.
Because the government didn't have that money to inject in, because the government itself was so heavily indebted to the power distributor and the generators that it was practically impossible for the government to pay. In fact, at the time, it was argued quite forcefully that if the government paid its own indebtedness to ECG, the company was in a better position to be able to make all the necessary investment to do well. But here we are, the government was unwilling to make the sacrifices that were required, or the governments did not have the money to be able to pay all its indebtedness. Remember when in 2015, because there was a slump in world crude prices, we had to create the energy sector levy. The purpose was to be able to raise money to deal with the legacy debts that had bedeviled ECG. And that had been the case for many, many years. So we introduced the energy sector levy, and which we now call ESLA, right? The purpose was to help deal with the indebtedness. So the government wouldn't have that 500 million TOMA that were required to make the injection. Therefore, bring in the private sector participants so that they can make the investment but also introduce their efficiency so that the energy sector will be strong and robust, so that we can produce sufficient energy to try and buoy up any infrastructure and industrial growth. Comes in a new government in 2017. Then Energy Minister Boakye Jaku makes an announcement, quite a surprising announcement, and not surprising to many of us, because there were complaints at the time that even this concession was an outright sale of ECG. And I remember then former President, President Mahama stating at various fora that it was not an outright sale, and that this was just private sector participation, and that after 20 or 25 years maximum, the assets were going to revert back to the state. And people kept insisting that no, this was a sale. But when the processes started, it was obvious that this was private sector participation. Now, and at the time, the arrangements were such that the private sector participation component was going to be about 80% or more. So a lot more companies were involved in this process. Now, the new government came in and decided that no, this is a strategic national asset. Therefore, relinquishing more than 80% to private sector company would likely lead to a situation where the country could be held ransom. That was their argument. Therefore, the energy minister then announced that they wanted local participation of not less than 51%. That is to be able to give you controlling stake. Leave controlling stake in the hands of Ghanaians, so that we know that these are Ghanaians who will bring the money. But at the time, he said that there was a caveat. These Ghanaians willing and desirous of participating must have the money. To put it, must have the 500 million or the equivalent of it if you were going to consider what contribution the foreign partners were going to make. The Ghanaians should be able to contribute their quota of the 500 million in order that they can take up this stake. Toma, right? That was the argument at the time. I don't know if I quite agree with Toma when he says that from that time, it was obvious that we're going to run into trouble, that the Ghanaian participant wouldn't be able to raise the money. Because
I think when the PDS came on board, people were questioning whether they actually have the financial muscle or even the competence to bring in the efficiency that we really needed for the energy sector. So I'm sure that's where it's coming from.
was not a matter of whether they would actually have the money, but whether they would see the need to bring in the money. We all know how things operate here. For the cabal of investors to get into that deal, they have a certain amount of collection. They simply saw a way to make the shortcut by taking the collections, the initial collections, and using it as the 500 million investment. All right. And when you know you're in a position to do that because of your influence and everything, the influence that got you the deal in the first place, why would you bother to go and take out your 500 billion which you have put somewhere, which for some of them probably can't even explain how they came about the money in the first place, and now put that money down on the table. All right. If just even a technician, I had a problem with ECG last week. If just an ordinary technician was telling me that, look, I was taking my car to my house. He was telling me, look, Thomas, this thing, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to get through this thing.
You don't need to.
When you want, if you have about 51% investment for Ghanaians, put it on the stock market. Last year, MTN raised the equivalent of about $300 million on the Ghana Stock Exchange. A lot of that money was from retail investors.
Okay.
All right. Why? Because MTN is a household name. Basically, most of the people investing don't really understand the financials. Household name sells. Household brand, everybody knows, sells. If you had done that first of all, this is what this guy was arguing. It made sense to you. If you had done that first of all, you will have covered at least part of that local gap. All right. But when you now leave it to a group of people who are being brought in, remember this thing that for the Morocco having the 49%, there was an open tender to decide who was getting the 49%. Now, what was the process for deciding the Ghanaians who have the 51%? Which process, please tell me, if anybody knows how they arrived at those Ghanaians with the 51%. Please tell me how it was done.
The argument about floating shares on the stock exchange was an old argument that was made by the Public Utilities Workers Union, which were championing the stay of the status quo. They were against the concession. And the argument essentially was that first they said government should take off its long hand in the management of ECG. That government should pay its indebtedness to ECG.
They themselves are the part of the problem.
Yes, if both of those things were done, and ECG was still not strong enough, then they list on the stock exchange.
I was just talking about the 51%.
The 51%. Okay.
Look, see, the compact, for the avoidance of doubt, the compact, as Malik has explained to everybody, I think it was a very good idea. There was nothing wrong with the compact the way it was designed. The fact is that we just bungled it. We just bungled the implementation. Even though the compact it was a very good idea. We just bungled it on the basis of the fact that
because we always do that anyway. We always bungle things.
Because we wanted to have 51%. Well, for good reason, I suppose. But the fact was that instead of us to go about making sure that we got 51% backed by money, we were intending just as well as, I'm sorry to say, the way the opposition party has put it, state capture. Which I mean, I really don't like saying things like this on air because it's easy to get politically labeled. But the fact that is just the truth of the matter. All right, and that's why I'm still saying. That's why I keep on saying on this point that whoever said the guys that got the 51%, what process was gone? What due diligence process did they go through?
We don't have.
We keep talking about the guys we keep talking about the foreigners who they get 49%. Nobody's talking about what due diligence was done the Ghanaians who had the 51%.
No, but that's exactly the point. So, and my point of departure from you when you talk about your support for the termination. I was against the termination.
Why?
And my reasoning simply is this. What was the basis for the termination? The basis simply was that Al-Qut wrote to ECG saying that an official of Al-Qut who signed the demand guarantees lacked capacity to sign those demand guarantees. That was what we were told by government. It was on the basis of that the government said it suspected fraud, right? My recollection is right. Now, if a company as Al-Qut has been approached by Joe Australia, who went to them looking for retrocession for the demand guarantees, and Al-Qut is not saying that the official who signed the document was unknown to them Al-Kut is saying that that person exceeded his powers.
The limit was $15,000, and he signed something for $350 million.
Okay, so I mean, there's been some
how
somewhere.
is it that Al-Kut, who were just about third or fourth parties, because PDS had no agreement with Al-Kut.
Okay.
Yeah.
PDS agreement was with Danwell Insurance.
Actually, it was with Carl Bank.
Carl Bank
Had the agreement with Danwell.
Danwell
Danwell had with Joe Australia.
Yeah.
Joe Australia had with Al-Kut.
In that chain.
Hey, I'm running out of breath.
So Thomas, if Al-Kut now says that the documents they issue are not valid, does that naturally invalidate the whole agreement? Okay. I say no.
Yes.
But
no,
at some point,
Al-Kut made it very clear that, one, under their own corporate constitution, they're not allowed to engage in such things. Two, and which is even more important, they didn't have the financial capacity to meet the terms of the guarantee if called upon. So it now became very clear that, look, no matter how we go about this thing, if something goes wrong and these guys, the PDS, default on their money they were supposed to hand over to the state, we could not resort to Al-Kut. Al-Kut will say that, look, this, bottom line, look, we don't even have the money to refund the money to you.
Did you talk to the people you have contractual agreement with, i.e. Carl Bank, Danwell? Did you talk to them? You absolutely not. Okay. You went to the fourth party who is saying that its own official exceeded his powers in executing documents that PDS did not have direct dealings with them over. Okay. Why didn't we ask Danwell and Carl Bank and say...
That's a matter of process, because we know that between Danwell and Carl, they don't have the capacity. That's why we had to go and get...
So if they don't have the capacity, but the rules provide that they should get a retrocessor, and they went to get a retrocessor in Al-Kut, and Al-Kut now comes to say that the official who issued it, that they didn't have capacity, did it not require that you just go back to Danwell and Carl Bank and say, well, the document you have submitted, the people say they don't have capacity. Can you remedy the breach? Okay. Remedying the breach and keeping your 190 million and cancelling and losing that 190 million or even more, which one is better? The breach didn't occasion any loss to us, did it?
But please take note that even at that time, the time this whole thing blew open, I spoke with somebody right at the top of Doma, and they were insisting that there was nothing wrong with the transaction. That in fact, the Al-Kut was lying to say that they were not aware of it, and they even pointed out the fact that, and this is something that I still don't understand. The initial premium made to Al-Kut, why did Al-Kut accept it? $7 million or so.
That their 31st July letter they even wrote to Joe Australia. What was it? They said the rest of the money did not come, therefore they were going to cancel the agreement. How do you cancel an invalid agreement? How do you cancel an agreement that you say your official signed in excess of his powers? And when we were going to Al-Kut, why didn't we take Joe Australia? Why didn't we take Danwell? Do you understand my point? So the breach that we are talking about, how much money did we lose because of that breach? Note that this was a demand guarantee, which was for a performance guarantee. It was not the assets of ECG, because we have heard people say, oh, we have billions and billions of assets that way. It is not true. The demand guarantees were not protection for the assets of ECG.
It was for the inflows.
It was merely for two things: the lease assignment agreement and the bulk supply agreement. The lease assignment agreement is worth $100 million. The bulk supply agreement was $250 million, making $350. So the demand guarantee was securitizing the performance of that amount of money. That if any time that payment was not made, then we could call upon this demand guarantee. There was never a point in the 6 months that there was need that PDS did not perform to the extent that we needed to tap into the demand guarantee. That didn't arise. And those who say that, were we waiting for that to arise before we now realized there was a problem?
It's a 20-year agreement, not a 6 months.
The reality is that, yes, in those 6 months, if a retrocessor comes and says, well, look, we don't want to be part of it, or the guy who signed is not. I think that we should have just simply said, okay, now go and remedy the breach, and we are giving you 3 months. If you don't do that, we will cancel the agreement. Especially when you go and sit with the Americans, and the Americans say, as far as they are concerned, the agreement is valid. I want to believe that our government exercised good judgment. Our government believed that they were acting in good faith. But I'm saying that the Americans are not minions either.
Okay. That
it cannot be said that the Americans didn't know what they were talking about when they insisted that the agreements were valid and that all the documents that were issued were valid. In fact, our government could have said that the Al-Quds official who signed it, we are holding Al-Quds accountable for that because the official signed it. Why did we do that?
Have you considered
why did we go to the person alleging that there was wrongdoing to go and prove or validate the allegation?
Quite frankly, I believe that the Americans are just tactfully pulling out of the whole thing. That's what I believe.
Why would they? Because MCC
if Al-Quds says, look, this is not our gig. We don't even have the financial muscle to back it up. I don't think arguing about whether we should have done this with Al-Quds, it doesn't. The bottom line is that if anything had gone wrong, Al-Quds has told you, we have said it's not ours, and we don't even have the muscle to enter such an agreement. So at that stage, who would you go and hold?
But Thomas, were you expecting issues that came out of this whole thing to tell you anything other than what they told you? Because they were the people who wrote to you, indicating clearly that they were not happy with this agreement and therefore they didn't want to be part of it. And I'm saying this because Al-Quds, we know on record, wrote to Joe Australia saying that some money didn't come to them, therefore they were cancelling the agreement. The same agreement which was not valid. How do you reconcile that?
It cannot be reconciled.
The people who say that they don't have the capacity, and so which is it? Is it that they don't have capacity? They don't have the capacity to handle this? Is it that the guy who signed it exceeded his capacity, or it is that their share of the money didn't come?
The one the capacity bit has already been established because they themselves said that the person he doesn't have the capacity.
But Thomas, now maybe we need to find out. Maybe we need to find out who wrote to say that the full money had not come. Whether that person was not part of the cabal of fraudsters. But no, as they say, and they say when you are driving, you're not sure about what's in front of you, just apply the brakes. And I think government was right
in applying the brakes.
And
with all the
anything else would have been
maybe we could have managed it better, so we don't get here.
When they applied, I'm not using that to clear government. I am saying the government totally bungled the deal.
The whole thing.
Bungled the deal. Then they had to apply the brakes so that they would not get involved in a crash somewhere down the line, where when you now check what had led up to that crash, it would have become clear that it was their fault in the first place. They had not
but if the government decided that it was going to ask the people who had a valid agreement with PDS, i.e. Danwell Insurance and Calban, to go and remedy whatever breaches that Al-Quds claim had been occasioned, taking that decision, what would it have cost the state?
Well, let me tell you, if I was in government, let me tell you, I wouldn't do that. I've given people a mandate to go and get a demand guarantee to cover certain something. And you've now gone and come back, and it is emerging that the demand guarantee was not correct. All right.
Was not correct. Says who? Says who?
Says Al-Quds, the people who have had the 350
million. That their share of the money didn't come.
That does not matter. The bottom line is this. The bottom line is this. If that 350 million had been called upon, Al-Quds would not have given us the 350 million because as they themselves have warned us, they don't have it.
But we don't know that.
But from the beginning, they told you that they don't have it.
We don't know that.
Okay.
But I'm saying that the same people wrote saying that their share of the money didn't come, and they wrote to Joe Australia. The same people. So if the agreement is invalid, if they didn't have the capacity, why were they asking for that?
So what you do is ask about that, but not about the 350, whether the 350 million, whether they have brought it out.
And when we were
what you do is ask them, why were you asking for the money? Because for the 350 million, I think that one we need to be very clear about.
When we were going to them, why didn't we take Joe Australia, who entered into an agreement with them. Why didn't we take Joe Australia around? But to say, well, Joe Australia
as you have said, we don't have any business. Joe Australia is the reinsurance brokers for Donwell. Their contract was strictly with Donwell. Any shortcoming on the part of Joe Australia, you hold Donwell, not Joe Australia. So you don't have any that. You don't have anything with Joe Australia.
So did we hold Donwell?
That's now you're coming.
Did we hold them?
Good.
Why not?
Okay. What difference would
because
would that make?
I'm going to take a risk here, but when you are doing things involving state capture, it is very difficult to hold people responsible.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So
now
let's
let us wait and see whether the 51% Ghanaian equity in this deal. I mean, I'm sure we all know that they were in cahoots with PDS if this thing was fun. Are they going to be held eventually?
Okay.
I mean, come, we know how
I think before we get into how much we're losing and what we wouldn't have lost if we did not cancel or terminate this deal, let's listen to Kojo Oponkroma, his information minister. Then also listen to the deputy energy minister Oreku Edu, who's been explaining how the whole termination came about and what next for our energy sector.
The two sides were not able to agree on a common path to resolve this point. The government of Ghana, consequently, from 9:30 a.m. today, is commencing the process to terminate. The necessary documentations are being filed with PDS and the Energy Commission. It is expected that residual matters between ECG and PDS will be resolved with dispatch. ECG has remained in possession of assets, while PDS has been assisting it with some limited services in the period during which the concession was suspended prior to this termination. The government of Ghana and the U.S. government will continue to work together on other development cooperation projects. This, for the avoidance of doubt, has not been a crisis of confidence. It has been a difference in opinion, which we have mutually agreed to respect. The government hereby also addresses a number of issues that have been raised during this intervening period. First, could this failure to deliver and maintain valid securities have been discovered earlier? The view of the government is that, to the extent that the actual documentation to bring the concession agreement to a close will end in September, including the conditions subsequent. Second, has the government been negligent in this transaction? Never. The government of Ghana has at all times worked with MCC in structuring this transaction in the best interest of Ghanaians. No effort to get Ghana a good deal has been spared. Third, is it true that the transaction was botched by some machinations of government? Government has not been up to any machinations. The intent has been to ensure efficiency in the ECG turnaround program and the fulfillment of the broader compact all along. Was there something wrong with switching from 80-20 to 49-51? Absolutely not. The government holds the view that in transactions of this nature, Ghana and Ghanaians should be given an opportunity to get a deep end of the stick as much as is possible. Was there something wrong with switching from bank guarantees as opposed to insurance guarantees? Our views are the two have the same effect. There was nothing wrong with this change. It was the only feasible path at that stage since the tariff methodology had not been made available as at that time. Is government still interested in private sector participation? Yes, government is interested in private sector participation. In the coming days, the minister responsible for finance will be outlining how we intend to achieve private sector participation in the ECG turnaround program still, even in the absence of this particular option. Should government have acquiesced to the MCC pressure to save the $190 million US grant? We do not believe. The government has been committed to ensuring and will continue to ensure that DUMSO is a thing of the past. We also do not expect interruptions in power supply as a result of this decision.
The sales and retail of energy license has already been suspended, and PDS, up until 9:30 this morning, was still in possession of the distribution
of energy distribution license. That one will today be terminated by the Energy Commission as the law demands. ECG, when all these things have been effected, will assume full control of the assets, which hitherto has been in possession of PDS. One may ask, what happens to the workers of ECG, PDS? The assertion is that once there was no transfer, if the demand guarantee was not in place as of March, 1st of March, then it necessarily means that there was no transfer of workers. So the workers still remain the workers of ECG, and then ECG will be meeting the unions and the general workers' body today to explain to them exactly what has happened.
So that was Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah who spoke first, and then by the Deputy Energy Minister William Oreku Edu, explaining what will be done going forward by government. But everybody is actually worried about the 190 million that we're losing because of terminating this contract. But again, we're told we will lose more than that, because there is probably, for instance, an investment of more than $600 million that we could also lose from the termination. First, I want to find out from you, Toma. Explain to us what the 190 million would have gone into. Then we can talk about the other things we're losing.
You see, the compact covered several things.
Yeah.
It covered the distribution side, which was the flagship aspect of the deal, the ECG side. There were some aspects that affected generation, VRA. There were some aspects that affected grid code, transmission. There was even an aspect that affected NETCO, the Northern Electrical Northern Electricity Department company.
Yep.
Okay. And these guys, each of these things, they were about, the compact had, I think, about 4 big components. One of them was the PDS one, that's distribution. And these other monies were supposed to go into these other components. What the US government now is saying is they're pulling the plug on whatever has not been dispersed as a whole for the rest of the thing.
Yeah.
And that is simply on the basis something they don't trust us anymore to use them. And don't forget that this is the United States. This is taxpayers' money. And they feel that they've given taxpayers' money to an African country that's been doing well in the past, but this time around they've bungled the whole thing. And they're not going to risk their money on things that we bungled anymore. So they are pulling the plug on the rest of the compact, which is why there's now questions about, so what happens to compact 3? And I'm saying, which compact 3? Which compact 3? Okay. Well, if you are lucky, if you are very, very lucky, if the Americans decide that because of their heavy reliance on oil imports from Nigeria and Nigeria's unreliability, and they feel that, okay, you, Ghana, you're coming up in terms of production, you're a much safer bet than Nigeria, therefore you want to cut Ghana's friendship. And because of that, you overlook how you have bungled their monies with this last one. Then you might be very lucky and get a compact 3. If not, forget it. There are other countries that in Africa that need those compacts, and the way they've been behaving, I think they deserve it more than we do.
Malik, what do we...
Toma is talking about the America needing oil from Ghana. We have been told repeatedly that Ghana is a net importer of oil. That if you look at how much we produce and how much we import, we actually import more than we produce.
But that's a different thing. We don't import from America, but we export.
The point I am making is that what we produce pales into insignificance when you compare that to some of the big players like Nigeria, like Saudi Arabia, and the current leadership of Saudi Arabia would do anything to please.
So you don't foresee
Donald Trump.
I
was in America when the US had their midterm elections last year. Donald Trump said, he boasted that he had actually called the Saudis to increase oil production to keep the prices of oil low.
In America.
In America. So America won't come to Ghana for oil. Okay. America may want to keep their relationship with Ghana for some other reasons other than.
So why did George W. Bush come to Ghana?
There are.
It was oil.
No.
Oh yeah.
It was Africom. Remember,
remember
African.
The Americans will always have something at the back of their mind. They come because of something.
Ghana, when you look at what we are producing right now and look at our potentials, there's a large difference. Ghana, I believe, will end up producing a lot more oil than we're producing right now.
But we haven't seen that yet.
We haven't seen it yet, but the potentials are there.
Are there.
Okay. I mean, when you look at the Peckham find, you look at the preliminary, the 2D seismic assessments done by GMPC onshore, in the Votan basin. There are good prospects, all right? Now, look at where U.S. is getting most of the oil from. Yes, Saudi Arabia, fine. Is that not the same country that was attacked by drone missiles how long ago, and they had to cut back the production by 50%? Nigeria, Nigeria's just next door. They produce 10 times as much oil as us.
As us.
That produced from where I'm from. Man, Charlie, they break those pipelines day in, day out, Sunday to Sunday, every week, every month, every year.
Okay.
All right. Ghana doesn't have geopolitical risk.
But isn't it the point that Malik is making, that if Nigeria and the Arab countries are producing as much, what do we have to
attract? The thing is that our own is very small, but our own is more set.
I do not disagree. I do not disagree with Toma that because of some other interests and some other reasons, the Americans may want to keep their relationship with Ghana flourishing, and because of that, and sometimes Americans like to the Americans like to play big brother in a big hat. So they may consider you for compact too, because there are some other geopolitical interests. We just had all these security corporations with them. So because
the American base,
because of all of that, they may overlook whatever disagreements we have and still give you compact 3. But that is a big may.
And don't blame me, they don't.
It's still may until
that's a big may.
They consider us.
Absolutely. And you can't blame them for it. It's their money. It's money from their taxpayers. If they are giving you the money and they are insisting that do XYZ with the money and you can't do that, they want particular things done particular way, and you are not doing that.
Instead, you want to use their money to enrich yourself, which they that are giving the money would not do in their own country.
Exactly.
I mean, don't blame them if they don't give us the compact. As I said, the compact 3 is an outside chance. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying there's a possibility that.
But that possibility is even slim.
It's very
slim.
I think one way we can navigate this problem is, we have cancelled the agreement, right? The next steps that we are going to take to implement this concession have to be top-notch, classic, transparent.
Okay. And
they have to be above.
Are you hopeful of that?
Restricted tender in 60 days.
With the restrictive tendering, I mean, there's been so many questions about it, and you've heard the opposition NDC talk about it. You've heard the minority in parliament. Whether they're playing politics or not, I think we'll still hear from.
Aisha, do you think we can get something right with restricted tender in 60 days? When an open tender in 60 months, we couldn't get it right.
It's the same thing other people have been questioning, Malika.
Which is exactly my point. If we do this transparently, if in the end it is obvious to all of us that this cancellation was not as a result of interest, and that some other interest other than national interest, if we can show by all the processes that would have led to the selection.
But we can't show that we have learned our lesson.
Well,
as for this one being based on its self-interest, is as clear as sunlight. Let's do it in such a way that we have learned our lesson. Okay, so guys, we're sorry, we did the wrong thing. We apologize. Now we're doing it.
Whilst I am a realist, I'm also an incurable optimist.
Okay.
I am hoping that we will prove everyone wrong by doing a very transparent process that is above board, that in the end nobody can question it.
Yeah.
And that we can submit that process to any scrutiny, and that it will stand the scrutiny of the international world. If that happens, then we can show to the Americans that, look, we were not doing this because of some connected people's interests. We were doing this because we believed that it was the best thing to do.
Yeah, and I think this transparency can start from how we replace this PDS.
That's absolutely the point.
And that is where the problem has also started coming from. People are questioning about this restrictive tender thing.
And even the time period. The time period. You can't do proper.
Let's listen to the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, who says it is really not the way to go.
It's the 60 days.
A government that cannot be trusted to do things properly under international competitive bidding. Even in international competitive bidding, they found a way of messing the procurement up. And now you are allowing them that you go and select your own companies and come and do restrictive bidding 3 months and then take the thing away. You understand? And we are aware that you are already meeting and shopping for prospective companies who will secure your interest. So the agenda remains the same. The agenda to appropriate the assets, 22 billion assets of ECG for a personal cabal is still on. We demand an immediate forensic audit of the accounts of PDS by an internationally reputable audit firm. And I'm saying internationally reputable audit firm. We are not referring to the MPP type of forensic audit, where they put their party members, some of them living outside, to form shell companies and give them audit assignment and pay them free money. That is not what we are looking for. We are looking for proper and internationally reputable audit firm.
Now, former President Mahama, and I like the way he puts it, he says the situation could have been avoided if good decisions, devoid of state capture agenda. I mean, this whole thing was started by the Eswell Mahama government, and it was taken over by the Akufo-Addo-led government. Listen to former President John Mahama, and then we'll get into that.
As someone who took over from Professor J.E.A. Mills of blessed memory and supervised the Ghana Compact 2 negotiations with the Millennium Challenge Corporation and the U.S. government, I am deeply disappointed in Nana Akufo-Addo's administration for his handling. Fellow Ghanaians, we are all deeply disappointed because of the self-serving decisions that we're taking. The deliberate acts perpetuated with the Flagstaff House in the ECG concessionaire agreement that has led us to where we are today. This was absolutely needless and could have been avoided. The NCC to withdraw $90 million of the funding amount. It's a sad day for us. This money was meant to improve the efficiency of our electricity utility corporation. Let me emphasize that these shady happenings were absolutely avoidable with the right decisions, with the future development of Ghana in mind, and not parochial decisions that reflect the sad and worsening situation of state capture that we're increasingly experiencing under the Akufo-Addo administration.
So you heard about, you heard Johnson Asiedu Nketia, who is General Secretary of the NDC, talk about restrictive tendering process, which it says cannot trust government to do a good job. And you heard former President Mahama, who's talking about state capture agenda with this whole deal. Now, I want us to start with the restrictive tendering process, because Malik put it right that how we move on from here is very important, and how transparent government is able to come to the public is what will build up that confidence once again. Don't forget, the opposition is also feeding on this, because next year we're going into an election here. So how government deals with this whole thing is also something that will help them come 2020. The restrictive tendering process, that will replace the PDS or the company, the deal that has been terminated.
Well, the thing is this. Every government sings or swims with its performance. Okay. Now, the government has a right to decide on the restrictive tendering process. All right. If it works, well, I mean, everybody except the political opposition who have their own particular interests will clap, will be happy, because they will favor all of us. If it doesn't work, well, government will fall on its own sword, Japanese style. That, to me, is left to them. Although I don't really think it's the best way to go. But I mean, it's totally within their right to decide to do it. And I would only pray if they decide they want to go. I only pray it works, because I'm a consumer of electricity and I want the best value proposition possible.
Yeah. My
concern is the time span. Whether restrictive tender, whether open tender, you're not going to get the best results in 60 days, because you will not be able to do proper due diligence. And it was due diligence that let us down over this lab with all the time we had. You've just made a point about the politics involved around the time span, which means the government has to get this thing in place, that is before the next elections. But that's still a year away. All right. I think that the issue here would be it's not about getting that. When it came with the 2 months, the idea was so that the Americans will still give us the money. Now the Americans have made clear they're not going to give us the money anyway. So you don't need to confine yourself to the 2 months, timelines. Okay. All right. You should be looking now. I think government should be looking at a 1 year timeline. Get it right before the next election, so that it will not, so that the debacle we've just had will no longer be an election issue. If government can get it right before the next election. But that's, I think that they should give themselves enough time to make sure that they get it right. Especially if they're doing a restricted tender. If they do restricted tender, they get it wrong. This could be their political albatross. You understand? Because at that stage, the opposition will be able to say that, look, these guys in power are so intent on state capture through ECG that they keep doing the same thing over and over again at our expense, that kind of thing. So I think they should just settle down. Forget about 190 million, that's gone. As Malik has said, if we get it right, eventually, there are other things we can get from the Americans. So we should settle down, try to get it right, regard the next election as the upper end of the timelines, your deadline, and over the next 1 year, try to get it right. Whether with restrictive tender or international competitive tender, just make sure you get it right within the next 1 year. But that 2 months there is totally out, and that's just laughable.
There's been a call for all those involved to be prosecuted, and I've seen some defense here and there. Malik, where do you stand on this?
To be prosecuted for?
I mean, all those involved in this deal, those who, went to sign the deal and all of that. I mean, the things that do not add up and all of that, they should be prosecuted.
Well, but prosecutions have to be founded on clear wrongdoing. Until that is proven, there certainly can't be any basis to call for anybody's prosecution.
Okay.
You prosecute people because you believe that they have done some wrong against the state.
Okay.
And that you have been able to assemble sufficient evidence to warrant a conviction and to punish them in order that can serve as deterrence to prevent other people from committing crimes against the state. Until you are able to prove that, until you are able to assemble such evidence, at this point, even government itself appears to have backed down from the earlier claims about fraud. Have you sensed that?
Yes,
that
because
no longer
I heard Anodompre trying to defend. We'll listen to him shortly.
Absolutely. So there no longer is.
Then it is against their own words,
exactly.
because they made us believe that this whole thing was done because there was suspected breach, there was fraud somewhere. How then do they play double standards to tell us that there's no longer fraud?
From any allegations of fraud now,
and that's muddying the water.
People of Ghana are going to take it that was a way. It just wants to protect their own people who would naturally have been who would require to be prosecuted for complicity in the fraud.
I do not think
that's the only way.
I do not think that it is particularly difficult to prove that something was not right about this agreement, which therefore justifies a cancellation, but also state at the same time that there was no fraud. Because to prove fraud is to say that somebody willfully intended and purposed in their heart and executed a plan to defraud the state.
Okay.
That's to prove fraud.
Okay.
But you can prove that somebody was negligent and that they conducted themselves in a manner which was not helpful to the state. And in order to protect the state interest, you cancel the agreement.
So in this whole thing, did government talk about negligence or suspected fraud?
Answering the question about whether or not if you don't prosecute anybody, whether that harms government. And I'm saying that it is possible for government to be able to justify this cancellation. I don't find it justifiable, but the government can if it is so desires, and I think that's what government is doing.
But in the interest of bringing a clean sheet to the public and to show the public that we are being transparent, don't you agree with those who say that?
I am saying, and I insist that transparency is absolutely important. Ray Espinosa, he's the president of Meralco. He told the Filipino Stock Exchange that they were considering pulling out of Ghana. That was even before government took the decision to do the cancellation because of political uncertainty and political risks. And that if this is what they will face in Ghana, because as far as they were concerned, this whole decision they claim was political. And that because of those political risks, and you know that business doesn't like risk, political risks, especially businesses which are listed on stock exchanges. So they said they were trying to pull out. Now, if Meralco said they wanted to pull out because of political risks, if the Americans insisted that this contract was valid, if the Americans said that because of this, their belief in the sanctity of contracts, that the agreement ought to remain, then we have a lot of work to do to convince the world that we are a people that respect the sanctity of contract and that we are transparent and honest deal brokers in our dealings with other part, especially foreign businesses.
Dealing with our image on the, in the world, or our image on the international front is one thing, but I think we should begin from home. Now that people have lost so much confidence in the government, isn't it one of the things that government can do to whip up that confidence back in their country? Then we can talk about the international world.
I think we have to be careful about hyping this, and I have a slight disagreement with Toma when he says that going into the election next year, if they don't deal with this, it will blow up in the faces of government. And I'm not using his exact words, but something to that effect.
If they do it wrongly,
by the time we go into the elections, if power remains stable, I don't think anybody will care.
Anybody will care.
Ghanaian people don't care about PDS or ECG. I think Ghanaians generally don't care who manages ECG. The Ghanaians want to have consistent, affordable power. But that can enable them to live their lives.
That is where the problem will be, because we wake up every day and see increase in tariffs, and so that could be a blow. The blow that we're talking about is the blow that will hit the face of government if we continue seeing stable power but still see increase in tariffs. There are no more
frequent increase in power tariffs than there are in petroleum products, right?
And it's all, I mean, you know, it's a chain.
Please, what I said there,
because
what I said was that if we get it wrong again, if we have another scandal like this one, then there will be a problem. You are both right in a sense when you tell the father, look, yes, Ghanaians just want regular power, but even with regular, I mean, when this PDS thing has come, all right. Power, there was no irregularity in power between it, but everybody's talking. Now, if you have a second round of this, then it will be a talking point, whether power is irregular or not.
Okay.
All right. Especially where you have a situation where you're talking about restricted tender within a very short period, which is very people are very, very, very suspicious about. All right.
Yes.
Now, if they don't do anything at all, they'll be even better off than doing it again and doing it wrongly within a short period. Instead of that, they better just leave it the way it is and just let ECG continue with all the challenges we know we have.
And talking about our image on the international front, in fact, the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, who is Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, has been complaining, and he says that we've proven ourselves to the whole world that as a country that promotes corruption. Listen to him.
When you don't conduct yourself as a sovereign creditably, with integrity, above board, you don't exhibit transparency and accountability, you lose respect and you lose even the moral grounds to talk about sovereignty. It's not a matter of calling the bluff. It's really a matter of the Ghanaian government having embarrassed itself. The Ghanaian government has put Ghana in an awkward position where we are now being seen in the Committee of Nations as a country that promotes corruption, that is not a transparent country, a country that does not pursue the dictates of good governance. That's where, unfortunately, the conduct of the Akufo-Addo-led administration has placed Ghana, and that is what is affecting our image internationally. And as you have heard some ambassadors already complain about corruption, the stinking levels of corruption in Ghana, this matter is going to further aggravate matters.
Okay, so before we talk about our image on the international front, this is the bit we're talking about, the double standard that people think government is playing. One time you say you suspect fraud, the other time you're saying that. So listen to Frank Anodompre, who is also a member of parliament, and he's saying that you need to actually ascertain whether there's actually fraud before you can talk of prosecution.
I don't think that we need to belabor the point. If there is anybody who has conviction, and the Americans are here, the American embassy here, they are also monitoring, they have their intelligence. If they have a conviction, and they have evidence that there is any fraud inherent, they will do what they have to do. They will do the needful. So I want to challenge my colleagues on the other side. If it is not just for the politics of it, they should go to court. Let them resort to the civil approach by going to courts. And let a properly constituted court pass judgment if it is fraud, because they say fraud vitiates everything. Once fraud is inherent there and it can be proven, then of course we can all come back and tell the story in the proper context.
But the Americans about the Bruja, yes.
No, I'm not worried. What I know, the evidence before me, and what I know, and the overarching mission and vision of our president is the one that is to prosecute and execute an agenda that will liberate and transform our country. And I think that we still stand by that. So, notwithstanding all these supposed exchanges and supposed criticisms coming from the minority, and it is fair, the minority have the right to criticize. But I'm saying that whatever hurdle thereof, we will jump it. But there is no fraud.
So you heard Frank Anodompre with that one. Let's go back to Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who's talking about our image on the international front.
Well, to be honest, we shouldn't read too much into this because, you see, at the end of the day, this is one step backwards we have taken. Fortunately, Ghana has taken many steps forward. Ghana is still regarded as one of the better places in Africa to do business with. And we have this situation, involving investment with state participation, everything which has gone wrong. And I don't think it's going to overnight paint us into a bad place to do business. Of course, where the one danger is that it's going to make people a bit more circumspect about doing business in deals where government itself is involved. All right, this has not really done our image goods in that aspect. But altogether, how many such deals are there really? You know, most deals are simply private investment coming in. We've finished our divestiture program more or less. All right, but of course there are certain other things coming, like the planned sale of VRA's thermal plants and stuff like that. Those might actually give us a bit of problem there. But all said and done, I don't think it's really going to do that much damage to our international image.
Malik talked about our international image.
Let me quote something Ray Espinosa said to the Philippine Star. And Ray Espinosa, as I said earlier, is the president of Meralco. He said, the terms are good, but if we will be exposed to these types of uncertainties, we might as well pull out and just devote our attention to the country. And even in Asia, it's more stable. Maybe we don't have the DNA for the kind of risk in Africa yet.
So if not for anything, for investment purposes,
so
we should think about our image out there.
This is what he says. I just want to associate with the comments that Ray made earlier about, this is not, you can't really say, oh, this will make Ghana's international standing collapse or anything. But when you have foreign private companies say the kinds of things that they are saying, and this is the only thing they are saying, when you have the American insist that this agreement is valid, that the concession is valid, that the contract is for them is sacrosanct, and that has to be respected, then we have to worry. And we have to tell our government that when these things happen, we should hasten slowly. This is not the only thing. When you have, over a period of time, consistent actions by various governments that raise questions about what you really want to do, what your commitments are, then they may culminate into your standing internationally being dimmed, especially in terms of ease of doing business. And we know that ease of doing business is not doing well. We know that. We know that we have slumped. So when you are taking actions such as these, you have to always look at the best way forward.
Okay, now, this Espinosa guy, this is what he said, all right? I think based on that, and I mean, what Mike is saying is correct. I mean, people are going to listen to what he said. I think it is imperative on governments to confirm something which is a conventional wisdom which has not been proved in any way. That PDS was taking collections and putting down that money as their $500 million investment. Now, if government can actually give us the figures and make that thing public and prove that it was true, then Espinosa has no credibility. Nobody, I think the international business community will listen to him. All right? But if they can't prove that, then of course it goes the other way. Then it means that Espinosa is simply exposing an African government for doing the wrong.
Why have we not put that out?
So that's why the government needs to do that. If it is true.
It's part of the strategies too.
Because I think that strengthens government position, isn't it? So once that strengthens government's position, why have we not put that out?
It's interesting, but I think that in all of this, we're looking forward to how this whole thing will be managed going forward, because now we've made a step ahead. Before it was suspension. People were wondering what has happened to PDS. Now it's been terminated. So we're looking forward in the next few days, few weeks to see what government does to replace the PDS. Let me read a few of your comments. And interestingly, the minority say they are going to insist that the finance minister comes to Parliament to explain further what happens next. So we'll be looking forward to that. A few of your messages. Isa from Tamale says, Nanado's lack of understanding of the agreement leads us to where we are and ended up giving away our national assets to his friends and family. Okay, but Nana is not the energy minister anyway. Kwame from Takrade says, these politicians, they are all the same, and I'm particularly disappointed in this current government because of the high hope I had in them. And that's coming from Kwame from Takrade. This one says, good evening, Aisha. Everything that has culminated in the birth and death of the PDS thing goes to suggest that the whole agreement was needless if proper due diligence was done. Abdulaziz is sending this from Nkoko. Aziz Donla is sending us from Wa. He says Ghana has lost $190 million regarding the termination of this PDS agreement. Clearly, as a country, the government has caused financial loss to the state. When PDS presented documents to the committee in Parliament, we panicked because they did not meet the requirements. That's what Katie Hammond said. However, I was scandalized reading through the PDS documents myself because the NPP claimed they have the men to do the job for innocent Ghanaians in 2016. Today, we've seen the reverse. The government is incredible, and it goes on and on and on. Okay, that's from Aziz from Donla. This is such an international embarrassment to Ghana, and if we were in a serious country, the Vice President, Energy and Finance Ministers who superintended over this deal would have resigned as we speak. Most worrying aspect of this government is that their shared cluelessness and deliberate intellectual dishonesty. And that one is from Daniel Alitu from Wa East. And this one says, very inspiring topic. Kudos to you. Greetings to Malik in the studio from Adochem Evans. Okay, Malik says hi to you too. When will leaders begin to do due diligence in signing contracts? I'm praying that judgment debt will not be lashed on Ghana. Leaders must sit up and do things right. And it's from Med Kampaha. Now, this one is from, okay, I'm sure your name will be down there. It says, hello, Madam Host. I am Noble from Cape Coast. I'm not surprised at the cancellation of the PDS contract. This government and its appointees have been playing with our intelligence. I always regret voting for them in the 2016 elections. How I wish today was 2020. NPP accused the previous government of not being able to read and understand, not knowing theirs is worse like never before. We wait to see if that so-called free SHS NPP party anthem can save them the 2020 elections. And this one says, you are bought for how much you sell yourself. We are in this mess because the Americans told us to privatize ECG in exchange for $500 million. This money is less than that what Newmont and Talos scoop from Ghana in a year. But because we are not in control of our resources, we have become merciful objects in the hand of metropolitan societies. And it's coming from Koshi Baduhu Aivo from Denu. He sent us that message. And this one says, we have passed the stage of ruminating the incompetent handling of this deal and the national disgrace thereof. What is the way forward? And that way forward should be informed by the lessons from this debacle, laced with punishment of the criminals behind this national disgrace. And okay, Koshi again sends this one. And the last one, the NPP should stop rushing to take decisions without thinking about the future effects on the nation. Those are your comments on. Also this week, Nigeria closed its borders to the sub-region, its neighbors on the sub-region, and this has affected so many people, including traders in Nigeria. We've been told by our correspondents in Nigeria. Listen to the Guta president, Dr. Joseph Obeng, who's been lamenting over this.
Our destiny should not be tied to a country. That's not how it is. We should respect our sovereignty, devise new strategies and all that, find new destinations.
Is a diplomacy?
Because if a country that you think that the market is there is putting all the impediment, all the restrictions and all that, and all your focus in that country, then you failed. You are bound to fail. Because they are not ready to open their doors to you. For Nigeria, I'm even surprised. Because if you, the big brother thing that all the West African countries are calling you, if anything, to go by. And the respect we all give to Nigeria as a giant, even in Africa, you should use your strength, economic strength, to pull the weak ones along. You do not use it to bully anybody. I'm disappointed if the bullying tag is being enjoyed by Nigeria. They should wake up. And then, because ECOWAS itself should even be revolving around it. Where it suits them. When a little country like Ghana wanted a little space for its retailers, and then they were enforcing their local laws, their sovereign laws. Nigeria have to use ECOWAS Commission, and their foreign minister came here, their trade minister all came here to plead that we do not enforce our local laws. Who told for the Ghanaian? Who protects our interests?
You raise a very important point.
Interest. Just give me a second. For 20 years, we've been talking about this, our space being taken away and all that, and now the whole market has been taken over, and nobody is talking about, and it's a law. And then they refer to a non-entity organization like ECOWAS. When you tell them to enforce your local law, which is enshrined in your constitution, then they say, because we have the ECOWAS protocol. And now somebody is abusing it. From the UTLS, shortlisting of 41 items, now closing of borders and all that. We are telling you that the ECOWAS can go to hell. And then we do not have to be begging. Ghana should respect itself. Ghana is not doing bad. At least a small country that is attracting the bulk of people from the bigger country should tell you that Ghana is not bad at all. And then when you put the benefits on the scale, you see that they are taking a chunk from our resources more than what we are taking from them.
Dr. Joseph Obing is the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, and he's been explaining how this whole thing affects, and the executives from other regions have been speaking about the matter. First of all, what's your appreciation of this situation? Ghana is a member of ECOWAS. I know it's not only Ghana that this is affecting, it's affecting other countries, Benin and the others. But I mean, people have come to question ECOWAS. I remember when we were having issues with Nigeria, our security issues, Nigerians coming here to, do this kidnapping and all the other bad things. The government told us, when people were agitating, that, look, send these people away from this country. Government told us, you can't do that. At least we are members of ECOWAS. We have to consider ABC. What makes this one different? That Nigeria decides that we are closing our borders so that people don't smuggle in arms and what have you that we don't want, but do not consider the other countries who are also members of ECOWAS.
Actually, the main thing that I complain about is not even arms, but you won't believe it, is rice.
Well,
the main reason is rice.
The main reason, but the arms is also on the back of it.
Well, it's on the back of it. There are several other things, but the main reason. But look, the bottom line is the idea behind it. All right. You see, yes, Nigeria is economic. You understand where Nigeria is, but Nigeria is a much more inward-looking country than like Ghana.
Okay.
And don't be surprised, because countries that have very large populations compared to their neighbors, they tend to be like that on the basis that they feel that they can live without their neighbors, on the basis that they have enough population to produce for.
But that's not right.
It's not right. It's not right.
No country can live in isolation.
Right.
I don't believe in that.
It's not right. But, however, this is the position they have always taken. Remember, they were one of the last countries to sign the African Free Trade Agreement. Same reason. Okay. In the name of protecting local this thing. But you see, where it is not right is that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. As long as you have Nigerians who are exporting products outside Nigeria and you are making foreign exchange from that, you should also be willing to have people who also export things into Nigeria and take out the foreign exchange. If you're not able to balance your imports and export, then that's the problem of your economic management. You don't let other people suffer for it. Anyway, the bottom line about this whole thing is that if you are complaining about smuggling, for heaven's sake, now you close down the border. After some time, I heard they're initially looking at 28 days. Okay, eventually you open the border. What have you changed? What you really need to change is how porous your borders are. Closing your borders will not solve that problem. It's revamping your security at the borders that will change the problem. So this is not going to achieve anything except making everybody to get pissed off with Nigeria.
And also that's making people feel that Nigeria is feeling bossy because they've always been tagged as the big brother, and they think they're using that to bully the other young countries.
No, that's not, please. Everybody knows I don't defend, even I don't defend Nigeria.
Okay.
Right? That's why I don't live there. I don't think we like the way the people.
Okay.
It is not about bullying. It's about Nigeria has always been inward looking. I think because of the oil money they had back in the
they
past,
don't care about anybody else.
Yeah, they could. You understand? And the fact is that the world has generally given Nigeria a lot of rope, considering the things that go on there. They're giving a lot of rope just because Nigeria has the oil that they need, and Nigeria has a 175 million strong consumer market that they need. So they actually give Nigeria more leeway to do wrong things like this than they give other countries. The same thing that happened with China. When did China join the WTO? China refused to get involved in anything trade liberalization. They waited until their industries were internationally competitive. All right. Now that is the model that Nigeria is following. That is the simple truth of the matter. They're trying to follow the Chinese model. They will be protectionists until their industries are strong enough to compete, at least in Africa. That's why they didn't want to join the African Free Trade Agreement area. You know. So that is what they are trying to do. It's not about being bossy. It's about they feel that this is the best way they can achieve their economic objectives, the way they want to go about it. It's not bossiness. But the question is, can you adopt that strategy and still be within regional groupings? And the answer to that is no. You can't have it both ways. You can't be a member of ECOWAS and expect to be able to adopt the Chinese pre-WTO membership form of economic development.
Exactly.
It's not possible. I mean, Nigeria sits down here when Guta complains about Nigerians trading the markets. The Nigerian High Commissioner and all the Nigerians I know could say that, but this is ECOWAS. After in Nigeria, Ghanaians are allowed to trade in the market. This is ECOWAS. You can't stop Nigerians from trading the market. But it's the same Nigeria that's closing the border. Yeah. Which is not ECOWAS. You see, you can't have it both ways. Somebody needs to explain this thing to Nigeria. They don't seem to be understanding it. Yeah. You can't have it both ways. You can't rely on ECOWAS when it's convenient and blatantly disregard it when it's convenient. It's in your favor. Exactly. Yep. And you can't do that. And the worst part of it is the border closure is not going to solve a single thing. What they are trying to block, it will not work. You see, there have been issues of border closures before, of refusing to take in exports, which were a bit different. I remember the last time this kind of thing happened, I was trying to explain to people why they were doing it. You see, because Nigeria is a very large market, you have this problem, this ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, where no duties on things passing through, and Nigeria was not willing to adhere to it as willingly as other countries. I explained to the guys the reason why was because Nigeria is the largest market, all right, in West Africa. What was happening was that several countries, including Ghana, to be honest, were actually importing things from Asia and repackaging them here, made in Ghana, made in Togo, made in Benin, and using that now to push them into Nigeria duty-free. And Nigeria found out and said, hey, no, we want to sit back and find a way to work this thing out. We can't allow ourselves to be dumping down to Asian goods which are being repackaged by our West African neighbors. Now, when that kind of thing happens, I can understand it. I remember when that thing happened, everyone was complaining. I was one of the few people that said, hey, look, sit back, understand what Nigeria is doing. This is the problem, challenge they have. And I could see with that. But this one, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Because closing the border will not, as long as there's a financial incentive to smuggle, there are only two things you can do. Either you remove the financial incentive or you revamp your security system. You can't keep your borders closed forever. All right? So that is not going to solve anything. And anyway, let's be honest about this thing. The smugglers pass through the border posts. There are places, look.
They pass through the back door.
Look, you have big Nigeria, the places they can pass through in Nigeria. And those are the safe those are not being closed because people don't know they exist. Where the smugglers pass, even where Nigerian customs are aware, they are on the take, they're taking money. and letting the people go through.
So those are the issues that the government should, pay attention to in addressing, rather than doing this, because of course it's affecting traders in that country as well.
And I checked, now check this out. I was doing some research when you started to come and talk about this. The first thing when I googled this Nigeria border closure was a complaint from a Ghanaian trader. Now check this now. You know the Ghanaian trader's problem. It was not that he was exporting something to Nigeria and he was not being allowed to go and sell in Nigeria. He went to Nigeria to buy something to come and, sell here.
Largely, that has been the complaint.
So now he
can't do bought things there, and that they can't have the things in this country to sell it.
Right now, this has happened. Some people have got their money locked up. By now, you can be sure no Ghanaian is now going into Nigeria to buy anything to export.
To other
which means
countries.
that every day, Nigeria is losing export revenue.
And if you listen to the Guta president, he made the point that, look, we can do without Nigeria. So if they want to close the borders, let's take the things that we've bought, let them come in, then we'll stop going there to buy things. I mean, that was his point. So I think that Nigeria should rethink this decision. Malik?
Right now, Nigerians, first of all, the happiest people of all are the Nigerians themselves.
Okay. Yes,
Nigerians
because they themselves are complaining. They're really pissed off about this whole thing.
This is just a case of the government. So when we even say Nigeria, let's I think we should say Nigerian government, because I don't think the people of Nigeria are happy about it anyway or so.
The government is made up of.
They're just being lazy and they're not thinking. They're just being lazy.
Malik, the ECOWAS matter, I mean, if you listen to Dr. Joseph Obing, he's so angry, he's so disappointed, and he says, listen, this ECOWAS thing, and his point is, anytime there's something, a drastic measure that's supposed to be taken by Ghana, then we bring in the defense that, oh, Nigeria is part of the ECOWAS community and all that, so we can't just get up and do that for diplomatic reasons. Why is it that Nigeria is able to just get up one day, not even giving you even a hint that this is what we want to do, so probably advise your traders to do this or that, and then they just get up one day and slap it in our face, we've closed our border, you can go to hell.
A big country, that's what big countries do.
It's based on the size of
even though it doesn't make it right.
Okay.
Big countries that know what they want, they tend to do that.
So how come
it doesn't make it right? And I remember I have been.
So of what use is our membership in such communities then?
I have been here in the studio at Joy FM and I'm talking not once, not twice, not thrice, quite a number of times, when Nigerian traders who have had their shops locked up in Tiptoe Lane and other places in Accra and in Kumasi come with the ECOWAS protocol to the studio and read it verbatim and say, by the ECOWAS protocol, we are allowed to do there's free movements of goods and people across all the 15, 16 countries, and therefore they do not think that Ghana is acting well when the government looks on whilst traders lock up shops owned by Nigerians. That's the argument that they have made. But check, according to Bloomberg, this year and next year, Nigeria is projected to import 3.4 million metric tons of rice. That's billions of dollars. In fact, by that figure, Nigeria is the second largest rice importer in the world, second only to China.
Okay.
So, and yet, this is a country that has the potential to produce all the rice that they need and even export some. But because they have to look for billions of dollars to buy rice, which is also affecting the Naira, they decided that they were going to produce their own rice. Of course, my friend Raymond Akwa doesn't particularly like Nigerian rice, but I tell him that it is his problem. The Nigerians like their rice.
Nigerians like their rice.
Yes, they like their rice.
If you go to a 5-star hotel, they will sell you Nigerian rice. You as a friend, you say you don't like it, they will tell you that nobody asked you to come. If you don't like our rice, go back to your country, go and eat Uncle Ben's.
But Nigerians like their rice. So the point is, in January 2018, last year, when President Buhari delivered his address to the nation, he said that he hoped by this year, 2019, there will be zero importation of rice into Nigeria.
This is how he's doing it.
Which is practically impossible because all the projections indicate that it will take Nigeria between 3, 4, 5 years
to be able to
produce enough local rice to feed the market.
Okay.
Because if you are second largest importer, second only to China, that means you consume a lot of rice. We are talking 3.4 million metric tons of rice imported into that country. It would take a lot of investment to be able to produce enough to feed this market. But the president said it. Now, their problem with this border closure is that there was a lot of rice coming from Benin into Nigeria. Therefore, they should close the border, the western border between Nigeria and Benin. That's what they did, which is now affecting other countries like Ghana. And we know that our foreign minister, Shelayoko Bochi, was there together with Trade Minister Alan Chimatin to have meetings with the Nigerian Trade Minister and the Foreign Minister to have a discussion about creating a certain corridor that will allow the Ghanaian traders to avoid this closure in Benin.
But Malik, so wait, when somebody is bringing golden tree chocolate from Ghana to Nigeria with this and we know that Nigeria does not want rice coming in from Benin. Does golden tree chocolate look like rice? That they cannot know that it is not smuggled rice being brought in, or Nigerians, or sorry, even the other way. The biggest selling noodles in Ghana is made in Nigeria. Indomie. So if somebody is bringing out Indomie from the Nigeria along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, they are bringing it out towards Ghana. Does it look like rice? That they will not?
And you know what? In all borders, there are prohibited goods, right?
Yes.
The government could simply say, okay, no rice is allowed. Any other thing permitted
can be allowed.
Just prohibit rice. And rice is not a needle, you can just see.
And Thomas made the point right that even the people who smuggle, they don't pass through the main borders. They have their own routes where government may not even know about. So this decision is neither here nor there. But interestingly, the Deputy Trades Minister spoke to us this week on PM Express. Carlos Ahinkra, and he made some assurances, and he says the issue should be resolved in a couple of weeks. Listen to him.
But there we did the bilaterals, and they were very apologetic initially that whatever they were doing was not targeted at Ghana or targeted at any particular country, but they were safeguarding their borders in terms of people who are trying to use
criminal activity.
Certainly, not just even importation or smuggling of foodstuffs and ban.
We believe them.
Of course, I mean they would find every information under the sun to let you feel like they are right. But you see, when somebody has the muscle, you talk to them, you slow down. You don't want them to punch you so hard that when you fall, you can get up again. We appealed to them, we made them understand that look, it's not only Ghanaian companies that are suffering. Nigerian companies also have their trucks at the other side of the border. So it was agreed that hey, okay, now let's form a committee on both sides. We're going to take a trip down to the border. We'll see the volumes of Nigerian cargo that enters Ghana or enters through Ghana through the Seme border, and also the ones that are coming from Ghana into Nigeria. Take the statistics, see how we can develop a way to manage the Ghanaian Nigerian exchange so that we don't suffer. Of course, they're only trying to say that how do we ensure that the goods that you are bringing into my country was actually manufactured in Ghana? Because what they are saying is, I mean, you see the picture in the background. Some are imported rice, which they are trying to prevent. And as I speak to you today, because of this closure and because of the inability of these rice to get into the country, Nigerian rice today, this morning, has shot twice the price. And that is what you expect if your production cannot meet demand.
So concretely, what have we achieved with these talks?
What we have achieved presently is to conduct that joint exercise, and we would come up with a communique to identify how we're going to exchange goods in terms of crossing of the border.
So the ultimate objective is for Nigeria to make exceptions for our traders?
Yes, and that is what has been achieved right now as I speak.
But the exception is not in force yet?
Yes, because we are not there yet. We are now, I think I don't know whether the committee has already started working, but if I'm not mistaken, Guta is part of the committee, the immigration service, customs, everybody is on there. We're going to drive all the way by road to the border. We would identify these problems.
When are we doing this?
I think within a week or so we should be able to do it. In fact, we are looking at within by a couple of weeks we should be able to solve this problem.
Okay.
So that was Carlos Ahinkra, who is Deputy Trade Minister, and interestingly, he was trying to say that we should pamper this our Nigerian big brothers because it's like we can't do without them, and because, for instance, the example he gave is that a lot of the things that we produce in Ghana, we dump it in Nigeria. But don't forget that in Nigeria, for instance, I know about Kina Pharma. Kina Pharma sells a lot of their products in Nigeria. But Nigeria has a way of making you come in to also create employment for their people. Are we doing something? Because I know Kina Pharma now has a big manufacturing company in Nigeria because they were forced to do so. Otherwise, they cannot sell their products. Are we doing something? Should we pamper these people, or we should just tell them in the face that, listen, it's like you tapping me and I'm tapping you. I mean, you can't do this. If you do it, I will also retaliate. And that's
the only man on the face of the earth who believes that trade wars are easy to win is the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Even he is now coming to the realization that no, trade wars are not that easy to win. So I don't think that anybody wants a trade war with Nigeria. If there's a trade war with Nigeria, I don't believe that it will affect Nigerians more than it will affect Ghanaians. I think that what we should do, I think it is particularly disgraceful that at the time that you have gone to go and sign an Africa Continental Free Trade Area,
exactly,
you have
Article 3 of the ECOWAS Treaty is just clear on that one.
You have the most populous country taking these kinds of, for want of a better expression, rash decisions and closing a border. You can't sign a free trade compact for Africa-wide, whilst within yourselves, ECOWAS within yourself, you are closing a border. Yeah. Now, to put in perspective what Carlos was saying, these manufacturers, this company that produces alcoholic beverages and others, Casapreco reported that within a few weeks of this closure, they lost $2 million. That's 10 million Ghana cedis. That's a lot of money, for a company. How many companies can survive that?
Yeah.
So that tells you the quantum of business that Ghana does with Nigeria. Yeah. That's just one company losing $2 million in just a week or two. So imagine if this is protracted, what the cost is to this company and the workers that work for this company. So it's not palatable when a big country like Nigeria, with the kind of population and purchasing power that that country has and represents, takes these kinds of decisions. Yeah. I think the right steps are what our government officials are taking.
To do it the diplomatic way.
Absolutely. They do diplomacy, try and get them to see reason in opening the border. If they won't open it, make exemptions and exceptions for Ghanaian companies so that the two countries can. Because if you look at the large number of Nigerian population in Ghana here itself, who are doing mobile phone repairs and selling here and there, doing a few things, that the two countries certainly have too much in common.
They themselves are not happy about this decision.
You don't do a trade war against a country when a country has done something that's wrong, but it's not specifically directed at you.
Yeah.
In this case, it's not specifically directed
at Ghana. That's true. That's true. We're not a target, yes. But they should have also envisaged that this could affect other people.
And that is the thing. You see, it has taken too long for Ghana and Nigeria to develop that kind of special relationship that the UK and
US
they have. I think we should have developed that thing. The other thing, the negative sides of it, like for example the kidnappers that come from Nigeria. I keep saying that no matter, let's stop making excuses. Kidnapping is not a Ghanaian thing. It's something that is coming from Nigeria. There's no two ways about it. But you don't need to close down your relationship with Nigeria because of that. What you just need is better security. All right, and I can say for certain that the Nigerian community here, there's an organization called the Nigerian Diaspora Organization, the Ghana chapter. I think I'm digressing, but just as an example, has sent a letter to the IGP. I know for certain because I drafted that letter myself.
Okay.
Offering to do community watch, against about Nigerians themselves, watch out and report to the police and everything. And this letter, I actually drafted it for them about 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay.
And as the last time I asked, the Ghana Police Service has not replied. But I'm saying that if we actually mean to, with the cooperation of Nigerians, some of the negative sides of the Nigerians can be removed or are reduced. All right. But beyond that, I believe that Nigeria and Ghana are in a position to have a much better relationship than
what we have now.
What we have right now. For example, what Carlos is talking about, it shouldn't be too difficult to implement.
Yeah.
Now, if Ghana pushes for it and Nigeria refuses to actually do it, then you have a problem. All right. It should not be too difficult to create a special window for Ghanaians to go through, and because definitely it is not, this rice smuggling thing is not a problem being visited on Nigeria by Ghanaian traders. That one, I'm sure everybody knows that.
Okay.
So
let me pick a few of the comments, and we're hoping that going forward, or just like the Deputy Trade Minister has promised us, in the few weeks we'll see, is actually 2 weeks, we'll see the borders or the special arrangements they're having for traders in Ghana implemented, so that our traders can have their peace of mind. A few of your comments there. It says, what has happened to this ECOWAS protocol thing that allows for free movement of people and goods within the West African sub-region? African leaders must sit up for once. And it's coming from Daniel Alitu from Wa East. Sheikh from Kumasi says, Nigeria brothers have shown us how to protect their infant industry. And Isa from Tamale says, the Nigerians are thinking beyond the box whilst Ghanaians concentrate on partisan politics. And who says Nigeria doesn't do politics? Nigerians have banned a lot of grains just to boost their agriculture. But what do we do in Ghana? If not, Vice President is giving lectures, the President is sleeping at lectures. How can we move on this way? Okay, so those are, and it's coming from Isa from Tamale. Those are some of your comments. So just this Friday, we saw a new face for the Ghana Football Association. Whether good or bad, that is the change we have. And the critical question, or the critical challenge for the Ghana Football Association, is how to restore confidence back into the GFA. Listen to Kurt Okreku, who emerged winner in Friday's elections.
I am really, really humbled again for this amazing opportunity to serve Ghana football. I think today, there's not been a Kurt Okreku winner. The winning team is Ghana football. Let's clap for ourselves. We have shown, not only to Ghanaians, not only to our West African colleagues, not only to our African colleagues, but to the entire world, that we can do it and we can stand for our rights. We have shown that we have a lot of quality in this country. The quality, the 6 of us have shown through our manifestos, our engagements, which has been relatively clean. Again, let's be proud of our achievements. In celebrating this success story, colleagues, it is time for us to work.
And that was Kurt Okreku, who emerged winner in the 3rd round. He polled like 93 votes. And in the 1st round, he polled, I think, 40 against 47. I'm mixing up the figures. But in the 3rd round, he polled 93 votes. That's more significant.
9.
That's the percent. Yeah. That's the percent. But the votes wise.
Number of votes.
No, the 3rd in the 3rd round.
Oh, the 3rd round.
In the 3rd round,
after Joyne pulled out.
Yes.
I mean, Joyne conceded defeat,
and that's what gave him the vote.
90. Okay,
that's over 90 votes there. So the big question about Ghana Football Association, I mean, after the rot we saw in the expose by Anas Anas, a lot of confidence dropped for the Ghana Football Association. It's even affected the game that we so much love, Ghana football, or football in general. Now we have a new president. Many people say there's a lot of work to be done. what are the most critical steps or the most critical things that the president and the new executive should be doing from the day they were elected? Malik, I'll start with you.
Oh, okay. So I think the most important thing is the perception the general populace has about the GFA and its dealings. I know a thing or two about GFA and what it has done and what GFA has always been. I think some of the perception is unfounded, but that's what happens to a lot of things in this country that many people are interested in.
Yeah.
People form very unfounded opinions and perceptions about things that they care about, and sometimes there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Be that as it may, a lot of people have very uncomplimentary, or if you like, negative perceptions about what the GFA stands for and what the GFA has done and how the GFA has conducted its affairs and its business. There's an unfortunate and misguided perception that the GFA is funded by the state and that it is an organization which is given money by government and that they always spend the money for their own purposes and that they fill their pockets with state money.
Okay.
That is an unfounded claim. It's totally false, but many people believe it. What this GFA should do is to try and correct those deep-seated false perception about it. But even more importantly, it should correct the perception that this is a cabal of people who just come together for purposes of doing harm to Ghana and lining their pockets.
Okay, Toma, quick one.
Well, basically, I agree with what Malik has said here. The big problem, we have to remove this idea that they have to change this perception that the GFA is a cabal of guys who are just out to line their pockets. Okay, so the first thing is they have to show a level of integrity that is far better than what has happened in the past. After that, I think the other thing, in terms of actual operations, I think they need to now come back home a bit in terms of the quality of our football and start back from home. My biggest quarrel with the former GFA president was not even so much what it was, the money he was making for himself as exposed by Anas, but the fact that we have got to a stage where Ghanaian club sides, I mean, we don't even get to qualify for the money zone of the Champions League anymore, anything. Our junior teams, which used to rule the world, are no longer doing well. It was all about getting money and sponsoring the senior national team, because that's where you could actually get money.
Yeah.
They could actually make money and also get some for themselves. But the point is that you cannot, the nation's football cannot survive just based on the senior national men's football team alone.
And I heard the president mention the other small teams and the way they are going to be.
He's done something. He's done a lot with Dreams FC. I think that's one of the reasons why people voted for him. He did very well with Dreams FC, and he did very well the way he organized the MTN FA Cup. Those two things have really endeared him to people. I think that if he applies his skills and gets people to go with him, I think they can actually bring up local football, which is necessary as the foundation.
No wonder he has a lot of experience in football, and I hear he has a degree in football management from one of the universities outside the country. So we'll be looking forward to how the new executives of the GFA manage to bring and prep up that confidence that we need for our football. And that'll be it for Editors Forum. Thank you so much. Toma Emire is editor of Gold Street Business newspaper, and Malik Abbas Davo, your one and only, he's head of the investigative desk and also deputy head of the political desk here at JoyNews. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs.